Good afternoon. I'm Teresa Freelander, Vice Chair of Athens in Motion. We're having a special called meeting today, June 9th, to discuss some items that require approval by the Athens in Motion Commission. At the moment, we do not have a quorum. If one more of our voting members shows up, we will be able to vote. But for now, Daniel, are you able to share the agenda? I'm not able to do that because of my technological issues.
Yes, I will find that. I need to start having these on hand, ready to go.
Every time I try and do something clever with this, I always end up creating some kind of weird situation. So
do you have the agenda that you can email to me, or?
yeah, I can do that. I mean, it's on our drive here. So let's see.
Yeah.
I'm going to share it.
Might get it. Okay, I got it from Lauren's email. Okie doke.
Okay.
All right, here is our agenda.
Okay, so welcome everyone. So our chair, Lauren, is out, but she has been reviewing all the materials that we're going to be discussing today and has put her approval on them, but I know that doesn't count as a vote. Have there been any public comments, Daniel?
Nope, there have not.
Okay, so I guess we can't even approve the agenda because we don't have a quorum. So we'll move on and hopefully something will happen.
Yeah.
All right, so our major agenda items, we have a Greenway expansion TAP grant.
And it may just be a TA grant. I thought they were the same thing. They might not be, but I'm going to figure out the details there.
Okay, anyway, it's a grant letter that Daniel asked for Athens in Motion to write a letter in support of, which we have done, and some edits have been made, and so, you know, it's basically ready to go other than filling in a few little pieces of information. But so hopefully everyone approves of the letter thus far. Do we want to put it up there, or has everyone looked at it?
I think since there's no vote to do, we could probably move on.
Okay, let's move on. AFS tabling. Anybody besides me able to do it? I mean, no pressure. It was just sort of an impulse on my part, you know, because we got all this new stuff from Daniel, which I need to pick up and get out of his office. So.
It's actually Julia's office, so yeah, she would love if you could do that.
Yeah.
And I believe Ellen Walker had volunteered to help.
Yeah, but I mean, she could only do for like a couple hours, and that's a big, long day. And
yeah, what hours are we talking?
Like 10. Well, it starts at I think 10, and then it goes to 10. But I mean, I wouldn't want to stay after 4 or 5. I'd be kind of done at that point.
I don't think the tabling area is open till 10, but yeah, I could be wrong. But also, it's $550 for a booth.
No, it's just $200 for a single day. You know, I was thinking just do it on Saturday over near the kids area because, you know, it's like family oriented stuff. But, you know, if we don't have, you know, because we don't have any experience setting up this table and the tent and all that stuff, you know, if I'm having to figure it out by myself, it's going to be like watching Kramer, you know, trying to do anything.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I guess we'll do it next year is what we'll do.
Okay.
All right, moving on. All right, so we're going to let Sarah share.
I'm going to go ahead and share the graphics.
Yeah.
So.
And actually, Daniel, I've got them loaded into my presentation so that I can go straight into the strategy document after that.
Good.
Okay.
Awesome.
I'm not getting the preview of what I'm about to share, so hopefully this is the right thing. Can you see this PDF that says overview of style changes?
There's
No.
nothing yet.
No.
Oh.
Do you have permission to share?
You know, I didn't see Daniel sharing the
Oh, the agenda?
agenda when he said he was sharing it.
That's weird.
Let me see if
Maybe you
there's.
should sign out and sign back in. That maybe fix it.
Sure, I can try that real quick.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Randy looks frozen. Oh no, Randy's not frozen.
Oh, just staring.
Randy's meditating. I saw your little wind chime paddle spinning around. That's how I knew that you weren't really frozen.
Okay, let's.
Ah, there you go.
Oh,
Okay.
fantastic. Okay,
All right.
great. Yeah, so very briefly, this is showing you the graphic standards for the Athens in Motion Commission that we put together. The original one is on the left, and that had pretty different colors than what was used in some of the previous plans, and that was so that we could break apart colors for the commission versus the city county. And what we heard was, you know, most everything is looking really good with the templates and everything, but that y'all really wanted to bring back in the true bright blue and the kind of chartreuse green, and the darker blue. Some of those like traditional colors, bring them back into this palette,
Mhm.
and also that you wanted to have a chunkier heading, not the kind of thinner heading. So we did that. So you can see one on the left is the old one, and the newer one that we would like to be finalized is on the right. And then to see, you know, kind of what that looks like in application. We understand you're still working on a logo with a local graphic designer. So the flyer on the left was kind of previously, and then the flyer on the right is using those new graphic standards. And then the document that everybody was sent, the strategy document, uses those new graphic standards with the chunkier headings and, you know, the traditional AIM plan colors added into it. So I know that we don't necessarily need to vote on this, but it'd be great if we could have approval that that we like the updated version, and we can go ahead and just finalize all of the templates that we produced before, like the PowerPoint, or sorry, the Google Slides template, the Google Doc template, the yard sign template, all of those things in this with these new colors and the bolder heading.
Okay, well, if we had a quorum, I would vote in favor of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I like it much better.
Mhm.
And then,
Yeah, same here.
all right. Well, that's about as close to a vote as we're going to be able to get.
Okay, great. So,
At
and
least we're making progress. So
yeah,
that's
I know Mark has like 3 minutes left. So quickly to go over the strategy document, you all should have received this. And I'm just gonna really quickly kind of ask in Mark's 3 minutes remaining, was there anything that jumped out at you, Mark, specifically, that you did not look through the materials, had no concerns? Oh, you did look.
Well, I
Great.
did.
Thank you.
I did look through them.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
it
much for
looked
doing your
great.
homework.
This is a really nice example of, very clear, direct, communication, and I like that. So yeah, I'm not an expert. I don't pretend to be, but just it struck me as very appropriate. So thanks.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we really appreciate you jumping on in your limited amount of time you had this afternoon.
Sorry about that. Yeah,
yeah.
I wish I wasn't going to the dentist. Believe me.
Definitely made it. But okay,
Great.
so I sent Daniel. I sent some comments or edits via a Google Doc. Google Doc. Did you by any chance get them?
Um,
So-
I've seen, no, not,
Okay.
not with this document. Let me
Okay.
look.
I'd send it as a, like, I copied the link and sent it to you.
Well, and
But anyway, it just little
Oh,
minor
got it.
stuff.
Okay.
Little minor stuff, nothing
Okay.
major. I mean, it's like, I think it's really, really good. You know, I didn't have any, you know, I didn't add any big paragraphs or strike anything out. It was just minor stuff. You know, and then the one thing I didn't see was billboards on our list of tools, and I didn't know if that was just an oversight or if there's a reason why we don't have that.
yeah, that was so what we did is it is listed under the listed under the roadway campaign. But I, let me go through the presentation because that's a pretty specific comment. I just wanted to make sure that I opened it up to general comments from Mark before he had to jump off. So you know, we start off with goals, and essentially we tied our goals back to the Athens in
There you go.
Motion. Bye. Thank you.
Hey, Mark.
Bye.
Hi, Mark.
The Athens in Motion goals. And these are important because everything else kind of builds off of them in terms of the types of messages and the intended users and, or sorry, the intended audience and the evaluation. So if anybody, if Randy or Scott or Ronnie, if you all have comments on the goals, we can talk about them now, or I can move on.
Nope, they look fine.
Cool.
The only comment I would have on the goals, like for example, the educating residents about the benefits and laws for active travel and bike ped stuff. This is stuff that Bike Athens does regularly, monthly. We offer classes to educate folks. How would how would our efforts tie into the overall Athens in Motion? I mean, does there just need to be more communication and branding about what is happening, or any ideas about that?
Well,
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
I was going to say that's actually that's a really good question. And since Randy said that he didn't have a comment on the goals, so these are just, this slide and the next one are just kind of like good things to keep in mind, considerations and best practices. So not too much to probably discuss on these. I just wanted to include them. But this action plan, so this chart here, which is pretty dense, because it's telling you the goals, and then it's going through the target audiences. So for example, like the education one, it's listing out all of these different, sorry, my screen shares blocking the numbers. It will go away in just a second.
Oh yeah. I
The
hate when that happens.
yeah, sorry. So I'm not going to point with my cursor. So for under education, it's listing like all these different tools, and the way that we envision this is like safety trainings and seminars. So for example, it could be having a training for um, the police department so that the police department understands uh, what types of like what types of situations put pedestrians and bicyclists more at risk and why they might choose to bike on the sidewalk versus in the street. Um, so it's, I think that it would tie into what Bike Athens does, but it is a little bit more, I wouldn't say comprehensive, but like definitely more varied in the types of education. And it could just be like having a focus group session to talk about this, or it could be reaching out specifically to, you know, first year students.
Mhm.
So I think that it would, like, when we talk about roles and responsibilities and coordination and collaborating with other departments, like right now this document is really focused in terms of coordination between the commission and Athens-Clarke County departments. It's not really focused on the commission and like non like NGOs or other entities in the community. We could add Bike Athens in, like, since y'all do have such a tight relationship with each other, I don't necessarily want to add in like so many other community organizations, but I think that if you, Scott, especially have thoughts on how we could tie in Bike Athens into the charts that I'll be showing later, then that would be a great add to this.
Yeah, I just think that, like, you know, I don't want to put Bike Athens on the hook for, you know, doing all these things that Athens in Motion is, you know, supposed to be doing on their own. But, you know, I do see in the document sort of like duplication of efforts, especially if you're talking about like training like police officers or going after the first year students. We have classes that are sort of tailored towards different audiences, and that's what we're trying to do. But it would make sense to like try to not duplicate the effort and just sort of like get more, you know, like when we offer a class, we can say that it's offered by Bike Athens, co-sponsored by Athens in Motion, that kind of thing. Just
Yeah.
it would check more of these boxes off.
Yeah.
And I think too, I mean, this is an overall plan, and if for us to achieve that plan, it's, you know, utilizing the resources of other groups, you know, all better for both of us. So,
Right.
Um,
So, I mean, Bike Athens is really an integral part of
Ooh,
what
yeah.
we're doing here. And, you know, I don't think I'm hearing Scott say that you want to formalize that relationship. And that's fine, but we do want to support what you're doing, and we don't want to be duplicating efforts. You know, but if there are things that we can do that support what you're doing, um, you know, and vice versa. I mean, that's what we're here for.
Well, and I
I
think
think
that, you know, the document and like this presentation is really just showing the tables from the document, because the tables are kind of like the meat of the strategy. But we can certainly add in to the narrative how integral Bike Athens is, and that relationship needs to continue to be cultivated through these efforts.
Right. That
Yeah.
was very good.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think if we just do a simple phrase change, maybe instead of just educate the community, it would be partner with other organizations to educate the community, because there's also, you know, there was a grant that I helped write a letter of support for a few months ago for UGA to actually do some programs for their own students that would accomplish the same goal. So in that case, like if they are funded and they are teaching their students how to do this, then that goal is achieved, and we help them by writing a letter of support, right? We don't necessarily have to fund that effort or even like have our logo slapped on it or anything. It's just the goal here, and what Athens in Motion, the plan highlights, is the need for these things to happen within the community, and not necessarily by ACC Gov or by Athens in Motion Commission, but Athens in Motion Commission could help sponsor and support and pay for some classes that Bike Athens is teaching. But I think if there's some way to phrase it within the table or document to just make it very apparent that like all of these goals could be accomplished by outside groups and just talking with them and stuff. So
Yeah. So I think that this table, I don't think that the goals should be amended to say like specifically that one of them could be accomplished through partnering with um organizations, because like you said, like all of them could be accomplished by partnering. So I think that it's like the goal is still to educate the community, and then how that's accomplished is where we would add the partnerships. Um, so we can certainly make sure that it's that that language is added in, but in terms of the way that the goal is phrased, um, keep it like just goal oriented, and then
okay.
we want to keep it like just what, like this is the what, and then we want to talk about the how, um, later on in the document.
Right.
So yeah, this matrix kind of gives you the overview of essentially everything that's in the document. And then we talk about different message types, and there's 5 different message types. Informative is more so informing people about like short-term activities. Interactive is when you really want someone to be giving you feedback as well. And we've got some examples through here. Motivational, that's, trying to get people to do something, not necessarily give you feedback, but you're trying to motivate them to take action in some way. And then educational is similar to the informative, but it's really kind of about more long term or kind of best practices, things that just hold true forever. Um, that would be more educational. And then celebratory, that's pretty obvious as well. So those are the 5 kind of message types that we have to carry out this campaign, and they pretty well capture, I think, all of the ways that you're trying to communicate, and really through all of the messages and all of like in with the messages and the tools all combined, like that is how you are explaining what Athens in Motion Commission is. So this communication and coordination, this is the after we go through the message types, we explain all the different tools in kind of just a high level way, and then we talk about scheduling here and coordination. So this is where, like, if Bike Athens felt comfortable um, being inserted into this document in more of a formal capacity, not just like mentioned in the narrative. These tables are where we talk about, in this circumstance, in a temporary pop-up demonstration circumstance, um, you know, these various departments should be involved to a certain level. So, for example, like if you know that Bike Athens leads educational seminars, then under the row for tool number 13, educational seminars, it could include Bike Athens, not just these Athens-Clarke County departments. But I think that's up to you if you want it to be that formalized of a relationship, or if you want it to just be listed in the narrative about, the partnership.
I think we could also add in, instead of just Bike Athens specifically, we could add in nonprofits and community groups. Because I think, especially in something like with the pop-up events, we wouldn't want to just come into, someone's subdivision with a pop-up event. Like, we're going to work with that HOA, right? Or if there is a community leader within the district, like, we want to highlight that we're working with those community leaders. And so that's probably something that we should put in at least, and have community leaders separate maybe, because that's a formalized position that is like supposed to be like a conduit between the community and the government, and that could be on everything that is really focused on outreach. But in some of these things, I think we could add in nonprofits, and then
Okay.
we know what that means without locking in Bike Athens too.
I think that makes sense. So when you say community leaders, that's a official position. Is that something that that there's a community liaison, that multiple people around Athens like have a position as a community liaison, and that's who you would want to be represented in this table?
Might not be that formal.
Yes.
It's like
It is formal. They're paid.
what about like
It's
an
like a
HOA
position.
president, or like in our neighborhood we don't have an HOA. We just have sort of the grandmother of Georgian Hills. I mean,
And I think we can say that, but I also want to highlight separately neighborhood leaders. That's actually the term. I just sent you a link in the chat that gives you, it's a prosperity zone, and their name and contact information. This is through Family Connection of Athens, communities and schools. And so these are actual positions where this person is the community neighborhood leader for that zone. So that specifically, I think we should call out. I agree, though, some way to capture, you know, other community groups, maybe like nonprofits and other community groups.
Okay. Yeah, so nonprofits, neighborhood leaders, and other community groups. Um, so when we're hoping to have, this meeting serve as the consolidated feedback for the draft. And we certainly could go through each one of these 9 through 16 and hash out the low, medium, high for each of those 3 new um, entities to add to this, or that could be something that you send us as a follow-up to this meeting.
Okay. Yeah, let's probably do that. And
Okay.
if y'all are good with me making that call.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. I know that could that could be a little bit laborious to hash out right now. And then we've got a sample schedule for ongoing outreach. So when we talk about outreach, we've really categorized it into ongoing and targeted. Targeted being more event-based or project-oriented, so something with a temporal element to it, whereas ongoing is just is always happening. And really, as you're developing your social media presence, you want to be having a post like once a month at minimum. So going with a calendar format really provides kind of an easy way to accomplish that once a month. And so this is that sample schedule for ongoing outreach, and it gives, this strategy is not about specific messages, but this includes like a couple of tastes of what a specific message could be like for ongoing outreach. And it ties back into what's happening in the community and what's happening with weather, and because we know that biking and walking, you are in the elements. So it's hopefully something that is like context sensitive and gets people attention because it is relating to what's happening at that point in time. And then we have this targeted outreach work back schedules. So one of them, the one on the left, table 4, is for a little bit more of a larger event, something that might require ACC more ACC coordination, whereas table 5 is really more of a small scale event. Like for example, Teresa going to AthFest next year, or Teresa and company going to AthFest next year. That is.
Thank you very much.
So that would be a schedule that you could use for a much smaller scale um, that the Athens in Motion Commission could pretty much pull off on their own.
Yeah, we could use a social media thing to say, we need a few helpers for the day.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
right. So good.
So that's what we've got, and the last one is evaluating efforts. So communication and outreach is a little bit of a fuzzy uh, area, and so there's some qualitative and quantitative aspects for being able to evaluate, and these are tied back into those goals. So it could be looking at the media coverage that's been earned. So something that you didn't have to pay for, media coverage of, new projects coming online, things like that. It could be before and after crash data or before and after traffic citation data to see if people are actually starting to yield more to pedestrians and crosswalks, things like that, or if speeding has dropped. And then, yeah, this is, I think, pretty just overall giving you a good amount of flexibility, but also some pretty good path forward to really accomplishing each of these individual goals, and like in total, accomplishing getting across like what the Athens in Motion Commission is, and how you differ from uh, Athens-Clarke County, and kind of really strengthening your identity.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Right. I guess one thing I would say is that in terms of the measures, I mean, some of them felt very anecdotal, as I'm sure you can appreciate, and perhaps we could work a little bit on that over time and developing, um, you know, some sort of measurement. I mean, you cited some things just now that made a lot of sense. Um, you know, but I mean, like how well we're reaching into communities that don't have any idea who we are or what we do. I mean, that's hard to measure. And how would we come up with some sort of metric for that?
Yeah, so you know, one of the things is how much, like, what your partnerships are with those communities, how frequently you're asked to come and speak in those spaces, the types of materials that they request um, from you. But it is doing an educational seminar, you can always do like a pre-test, post-test, which is nice. Um, but that's a lot harder to do with the general public when it comes to educating them on, you know, general benefits. You know, I guess your bond referendum, seeing the voter approval rates, that could be another metric.
Sure. Yeah,
But
I think it's just something that we should just make a point of thinking about on an ongoing basis.
yep,
You know,
yep.
because I mean, a lot of this is very, very soft and hard to measure. So, but if we accumulate enough anecdotes about things that are working well or not doing so well, then you know that will tell us something.
We may just need a session to sit down and determine, you know, what are our sources of data, what is available to us,
Mm-hmm.
what does the county collect, you know, what do organizations collect, or, you know, where are these data and how do
Well,
we get to
and
them?
also like how can we measure? Like what are the parameters that we will use to determine whether we've, you know, made a bunch of new friends in an area that we didn't have any friends before, you know,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
I can tell you from having worked on the Watch for Me North Carolina campaign, which is a road safety campaign, when I worked at the Highway Safety Research Center. You know, one of the things that I did was I tracked news coverage. I had a Google feed. So anytime that keyword "Watch for Me" NC popped up, I received a Google feed alert, and all of those articles from across the entire state came into my inbox. And so that was a way, um, you know, that data wasn't something that an organization was capturing, but it's data that you can sign yourself up for and you can capture. And that's why that earned media coverage, or the media coverage, is in there, because it is something you could create a feed for
Right.
Athens in Motion and see every single time that pops up in your local news.
Are you
Um,
able to drop that suggestion somewhere into this document?
yeah,
That'd be very good because, you know, I can't remember anything anymore. So it's not written down, it's gone.
yeah. Okay, so I know that we're pretty much at the end of the presentation time, and Teresa's got some feedback, and Daniel, you're going to follow up with us on how we can add in the nonprofits, neighborhood leaders, and other community groups
Mhm.
um, to those tables about coordination. Um, Anything else that we should discuss at this time?
Yeah, I have some thoughts from the public info office. I met with them earlier today. So um, so yeah, I'm gonna get
I
this
can
to
stop sharing
where
my screen.
I can actually read it. Okay, so one concern with the document, and I know this is kind of a long-range strategy, is just the sheer amount of work that is necessary to do all of this. That this is basically a full-time position for ACC Gov that would need to do all of this, and so I think it would be helpful to break some of these down into kind of a timeline almost, like if there's a table that y'all could add in with a timeline of like which of these goals and short, medium, and long-term goals. Because I think it would be a lot to say we're going to do 8 events. You know, we're going to do a month. We're going to do a monthly event where we go and table. With the current number of commissioners we have, I mean, as Teresa knows, that could easily turn into Teresa is tabling once a month at all these different things, and so
Teresa's husband will not be happy.
and we could set benchmarks for this, right? And so I think there would be like, so maybe on the short-term goal, the benchmark would be 4 times a year. And then identifying kind of which types of events are the ones that we want to focus on. And then you can start building on top of that with progress. Like once we have kind of an ongoing established relationship with doing education classes, you know, through Bike Athens, or once we've finished doing the first Open Streets event, it becomes a lot easier to do repeated ones. So that was one thought that they had from Public Info Office.
Can I ask,
Then, yeah,
just so the only, nothing in here is like, this is more of the, yeah, like long term, what you could use. We did include in the document action items, which I'm wonder if that's what they were kind of honing in on. So the page 3, right after the goals are presented, we talk about how the we essentially pulled out all of the action items from the original Athens in Motion plan that this strategy helps achieve, and that's the like host an open streets event, host the educational seminar, host community workshops, develop a road safety media campaign. And so I think I want to make sure that the PIO and like everybody else understands that this strategy is not saying you need to go do every single one of those things. It's saying if you want to like follow the Athens in Motion plan to a T, this strategy will help you achieve those steps. Like you will now be able to be more equipped to host an open streets event or to develop a road safety media campaign. Um, it, there's nothing in here that's like, I guess there are some suggestions on, you know, you should have a social media. Like if you're going to have social media, you should probably post once a month. But beyond that, it's not saying to go out and table. It's not giving you like do this, do this, do this kind of checklist in terms of out activities. It's saying like here are tools you could use.
It just depends on how, you know, how much time and energy people have to devote to these things. I mean, we prioritized in our first, you know, 2 years, but actually figuring out what our role was with Transportation Public Works, and then developing a revised complete streets policy, and, you know, some other things like that, that took a lot of time. And, you know, and because of that, we didn't do some of the things that are in the original Athens in Motion plan that will, you know, set out what we should be doing right away. You know, it's just these things are great, you know, to have in your document, in your long range plan, but, you know, you have to be realistic about what you can do.
yeah, and I guess what the thought is if we could add in just a section that does highlight what the low-hanging fruit are, so that if you're coming into Athens in Motion from not excuse me, as a new commissioner in the future, you're not going to suddenly get this document and be like, holy crap, we need to do all this. Like it helps set those goals, and it may not be that this is like a specific timeline thing, or it could just be short, medium, long, or even like prioritizing, like focus on these things first and then grow to these things. That I think that would be helpful rather than just having kind of, I think the resource for everything is great, but if there's some way to kind of show almost like your growth in an area, so that as you choose, if we want to work up towards a yearly, you know, open streets event, here are the other things that are kind of critical to do that. So, you know, such as like, if you want to have a strong social media presence, then here are, you know, you really need to start off with this workflow kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Well, I'm thinking that that's something that we need to determine as a commission, and using this outreach and community strategy as what we keep referring to try and build those short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals, and put a definitive plan in place
That's
rather than put it in the strategy itself.
Well, I think that makes sense.
More of a kind of a having this live as the strategy and then having a work plan.
Right.
Kind of how there's like an annual like capital improvement plan, like thinking through, you know, what you want to accomplish in the next year.
Yeah, and actually Athens in Motion does do a work plan that we present to mayor and commission.
Because it's definitely going to be fluid.
Yeah, and you know, like we accomplished some things that were on the list last year and that weren't on the list last year.
Right.
No,
Well,
Right.
and it could also very much depend on who is on your commission and what their skills are.
right.
Yeah, and if you know
Yeah.
if the commission decides that if the chair happens to be a web developer, and they focus on creating a really awesome web page and a web presence, but then they come down off of that and there's not a web developer, what happens in the long run? Do we just shut down the Athens in Motion site, or do you end up with a website out there that is not getting maintained?
Yeah,
And so
that's
that's kind of one of the concerns that we would have with, you know, making sure that when you're building something, it's going to be something that sticks around. And
exactly.
you don't want like a
Well,
social media presence that like comes and goes.
Right. Yeah, it's got to be sustainable.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing to mention was I have some other stuff from Dale Van Campfort. He's from the Greenway Commission, and he specializes in communications, mass media communications. He wasn't able to make this meeting. He really liked the work. He mentioned social media needs at least one weekly posting. If not, don't do it at all. That was his recommendation on that. So I don't know if we can adjust that in the plan. If it says that, then cool. But website also needs updates at least once a week. The overall plan looks great and is well thought out. The real proof, though, is in the execution, and he really likes your work. And then some of the other comments from Public Info Office. It might be worthwhile to highlight which items in this plan will be implemented by staff and which ones will be Athens in Motion. It kind of seems like to fully do the plan, you would need staff, and some of these things are really coordinating a lot. You know, like if we're doing a walk audit, then I'm going to be coordinating that, especially if it's between departments. And so I think if there's some way to highlight, and I think that might be within that one table. So it might just be that we missed that when we were talking about it. I think we could add in that we could work with nonprofits to educate. Oh, we talked about that one. And then with the website one, there was a couple comments. So one was we currently have two separate pages. One is for the Athens Motion Plan and one is for the commission. That being said, we don't actively update them. We kind of have them with static information for, we update when the commissioners swap out. And so we keep that page up to date. And if there are any updates to that mission, the plan itself, once we go through our next plan update, that page will get updated. We try to keep all the information within our ACC Gov pages kind of standardized and not have weekly updates. So even though the one piece of feedback I just gave you said weekly, that's really more than we can handle. So I think one thing to think about though is there's a lot that we can offer from our ACC Gov page that would allow for me to kind of manage that. Y'all can work with me to get the message sent out. But like I said, we wouldn't be posting an updated calendar or something on there unless we're going to start using the calendar module. So if that is something y'all want to have externally and have an external website, which there are BACs that do that, that's just a discussion to have. And I don't know that that needs to be highlighted here, but I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
I think that, whatever we put on the ACC Gov Athens in Motion website should not require you to do a whole lot of work.
Yeah.
I think if we have like an educational resource there so that people can like find out what, what's the difference between a speed bump and a speed hump and what are the criteria for getting one in your neighborhood, that sort of thing. But, I would
Yeah.
not want it to be like, oh, here's what we're doing this month over in this area, and here's what we're doing next month in that area, because that's just too much.
I mean, we've even found that when we have a project webpage for like Barber Street, for instance, just keeping that up to date or keeping the terminology vague enough to where it's like in next month we're gonna have a public. I found websites um, in my old department where it was like, come check us out next week, in 2009, and they just never got rid of the page, and it's completely it just doesn't need to be there. So that's something that we always want to focus on when we're doing that. And then I did find out that ACC. So last night in our budget, or Tuesday in our budget, we not only got the Vision Zero coordinator, which yay, but we also got a webmaster. Public Information Office got a webmaster that would start in April. So we're actually going to have someone who can be that kind of help get the website under control and provide that guidance that we really need from staff. One of the other things he wanted to highlight on page 13, we do highlight translated materials. We agree 100% that this is something we should offer, but we've been told, basically, Public Information Office says, like, until they can offer it, this isn't something we can offer, because you can't standardize that level. Like, you could often make mistakes in the translation services if it's different people doing it. So I don't know if maybe this is something where it's like, here's the importance of translated materials, and then working to support Public Information Office and getting that position filled so that we can offer it, but it's not really something we can currently offer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think that we can change that to say that like as um as capacity is available to provide these services, like this is what you should keep in mind.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. And Daniel, in terms of the posting regularity, I think I would never have assumed that a weekly website update would be feasible, or have the return on investment, to be worth your time. And I think that, when we talk about social media, we can say that a weekly post is um, the ideal, but that in reality, I think based on everything that we've heard from the commission so far, that really like the once a month minimum seems like probably a little bit more realistic at this point. So I think that it'd be good to still phrase it as like posting once a month is the minimum and like ideally once a week.
I think I think that yeah, we should have a schedule that has a monthly kind of regular thing. But you know, uh, like Lauren and I don't know who all else will occasionally post things on our social media, just because they would be interesting to our our fan base,
Yeah.
if you will. Um, and that sort of thing is fine and kind of fun and keeps it alive. But I do think that we should have a kind of a formal monthly thing that we put out there if we can.
And I mean, it could even be, I think, and I don't think the post has to be like a major
Mm-mm.
substantive post. I think it can be, hey, check out the great work that this group is doing, or NACTO just updated their standard design guidelines. Like, it can be any level of those things, but I think what he was getting at is, if you're gonna have that social media presence, then you want to stay active. Otherwise, you you're just gonna drop off, and like the way the algorithm works, it's not really gonna be very effective, and so it's not really worth doing, maybe.
Okay. Well, I've been taking an online free course on how to do a social media marketing campaign. And, it's pretty interesting. So there's a lot that we could do that's not a lot of work, and that's
Yeah.
not a lot of cost, So it's just really a matter of having somebody who's, interested in that and, able to spend a little time putting it together, And you can put it on a sort of automatic pilot once you get, yourself set up with Hootsuite or something like that. So.
The last thing to mention, I think on page 20, table 4, yeah, it's not likely that we would have a follow-up press release. That's kind of with the way that Jeff was telling me how those press releases go, because they kind of decide whether or not they're actually you put out the press release, and then the local media groups will decide whether they're going to actually talk about it or not. And from there, I guess he said the follow-up thing isn't something that usually gets done.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Honestly, all of that, I don't really understand it. So I guess somebody out there has like a board with all the press releases.
I don't think you want to do too many press releases because then people get tired of you.
Yeah, and that would be for a sample work back communication schedule for targeted outreach. So I don't think we're going to be doing targeted outreach as often as some of the other things. So.
Yep. Okay.
Um,
Well, did you have anything else from Jeff?
No, I think that's all that we just that kind of overarching stuff, and some of that, like you guys said, could be the way that we handle this in a communications like monthly meeting. It might be that every 6 months our communication meeting really focuses on, like it could be at the beginning of the year once we get our work plan kind of wrapped up. So I'm thinking like the normal calendar cycle you would have in December, you do your big report where you're like, here's everything we did. And it makes sense that the communications committee would oversee that for the commission as a whole. And then in January, you want to say, okay, here are the things, here's our goals for the next 6 months. And you could maybe come up with a list of events that we want to either attend and so I think it would be cool to have kind of that plan for, plan it out either in quarters or every 6 months. What are the events that we're going to be at, so we know well in advance, and then
Right.
we can be ready for tabling. Because there's sometimes Twilight kind of got planned last minute maybe, but we have Twilight every year, so we know it's coming up, and when it does come up, then we can potentially partner and stuff like that. So
Okay, so
Definitely.
I had kind of written down that we would add language to say to use the work plan that Athens in Motion puts together already as a way to establish those annual goals and action items. But it sounded like you want to keep those two efforts separate. You want to have the work plan be its own thing, and then once that's produced, then to come up with the communication, like the goals and action items for the communication.
what are y'all thought?
Do they have to be separate? I mean, it's all kind of.
If y'all want to do
Yeah.
that level of planning in the work plan, I think.
Yeah, because it's going to be the same people.
I think we should just
do them both.
do that. Yeah, because I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like we've got a huge pool that we're trying to manage.
Right.
So then maybe what the quarterly thing would be is just like gearing up for figuring out who's doing what and the logistics for the next like 3 months of engagement or something.
Right.
So
that would be very useful.
I know from our perspective, we don't always know what we're doing in 3 months. So from staff, kind of roll with it, don't we, Ronnie?
All right. Well, this was very good.
Okay. Well, I've got I think I've got all the notes from this, and we'll just incorporate Teresa's feedback, and then Daniel, your feedback on the coordination collaboration charts on getting in those 3 entities, and we will have all of this back to you in 2 weeks, and you'll get to have it all and look at it all for your regular monthly meeting, and then we're done by the end of this month.
We'll miss you.
Okay.
I know.
Alright.
I missed
We'll
you
just have
guys
to pay them
too.
to do something else, right?
I know.
There
Well,
you
and Jared's going to
go.
be there next week, so I'm sure
Perfect.
he'll get to see some of you around town. And
Awesome.
yeah, I would love to get back to Athens sometime soon. So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Let us know. We'll put out
Yeah.
the welcome mat.
I know. Well, my folks are still in Atlanta, so they would be very happy for me to make a trip back
bet.
down there. Yeah. So
All right, I think we can adjourn this meeting at 4:04 p.m.
All right.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you all
everybody.
very much.
Thank you all.
All right. Bye now.